Jake had been plagued by migraines throughout his entire life, and at times they would become incapacitating. His most recent episode occurred over a year ago, and he cherished each day without a migraine. Describing the intensity of severe migraines to someone who hasn't experienced them might be challenging, but prolonged suffering can make one yearn for an end to the pain, wishing for a peaceful departure. Although such severe migraines were infrequent for Jake, he understood the importance of heeding his body's signals and taking the necessary rest, despite being a robust, muscular man of 35 years. On a Wednesday morning, Jake recognized the familiar signs emerging: double vision, dizziness, and a slight throbbing in his head. Aware of the potential risks, he opted not to drive and arranged for a taxi to take him home. Instructing his secretary to cancel appointments for the day, he left the possibility of returning to the office tomorrow pending. Given the week-long duration of these headaches, Jake preferred not to take any chances. Upon returning home, he took 2 Dapacote tablets, grabbed an ice pack, and headed to the living room adjacent to their spacious master bedroom. In a corner chair reserved for such rare occasions, he applied the ice pack to his head, closed his eyes, and attempted to meditate mindlessly. Despite the pain intensifying, he persevered in the hope that this migraine wouldn't be as severe as feared, and he could resume normal functioning within a couple of hours. While in his meditative state, Jake heard noises below, assuming it was his wife of 10 years, Linda. Deciding to remain seated, he wasn't prepared for conversation. Linda, understanding his condition, typically gave him space and quiet when he was home during a migraine attack. However, unbeknownst to Linda, Jake's car wasn't in the driveway, and he had no reason to be home at that time since he usually arrived every night at 6. Despite blocking out the noise and focusing on controlling the pain, Jake suddenly became aware that Linda wasn't alone. Another voice, a man's voice, reached his ears. Opening his eyes, he noticed Linda and the unidentified person heading upstairs to their bedroom. Staying still and silent, he eavesdropped on their conversation. Linda, on her cell phone, was giggling and chatting with Shelley, Jake's brother Robbie's wife. The situation struck Jake as strange, and he questioned whether he was dreaming until he realized the truth of the situation unfolding before him. His return to reality was immediate upon hearing her speak. "Oh, Shelley, I'm currently with him. Thanks for arranging this date. I hope it goes as well as yours did last week. He'll call you tomorrow to plan another date. I'll provide a full report later. Gotta go. Thanks again." The agony in Jake's heart escalated beyond a migraine. Unsure of what to do, he realized they were oblivious to his presence and the reasons behind it. Situated in the living room beside the bedroom, the chair he occupied remained out of sight, offering a concealed front-row view of the unfolding drama. As he sat there, his blood began to boil, doing nothing to alleviate his headache. Nausea intensified from both the migraine and the distressing events. Heartbroken, tears welled up as he acknowledged the end of his marriage with the woman he loved. In complete silence, he listened as the man praised his wife's allure after their pants hit the floor. Jake found himself spiraling into an inescapable emotional abyss. He heard the couple lie down on the bed, and his wife, Linda, complimented the man, Blake, on their friendship and handling something substantial. Exerting self-restraint, he waited for the opportune moment to intervene, which arrived sooner than expected. After granting them a brief moment, he concluded it was time to confront the two lovers. Suppressing pain and anger, he rose and mustered strength to face them in their marital bed. Moving slowly and quietly, although noise from the lovers drowned any sound he made. Linda, engrossed in betrayal, noticed Jake standing nearby. Panicking, she attempted to separate from Blake, who persisted despite her protests. The revelation came too late. Jake's head and heartache overwhelmed him. Retrieving a loaded Glock G45 from his nightstand, he aimed at Blake's left temple. Blake collapsed onto Linda, who lay in shock. With tear-filled eyes, Jake addressed Linda, saying, "I loved you with all my heart, and you took away everything I cherished. My heart is broken." He fired the next bullet into her head, witnessing the departure of life from her body. Jake reached out to me, his brother Robbie. Despite having just committed a double homicide, his voice remained strangely calm. I greeted him casually, asking, "Hey bro, how are you?" Urgently, Jake instructed me to listen closely. He disclosed discovering Linda in bed with a guy named Blake, whom he suspected to be the new tennis instructor. Overhearing Linda talking to Shelley, he believed Shelley might be involved with Blake as well. Worried, he advised me to keep an eye on Shelley. Interrupting any attempts to respond, Jake insisted I listen further. He admitted to eliminating Linda and Blake in his bed, emphasizing the gravity of his words. Wanting to spare me from his anguish, Jake encouraged me to investigate if Shelley was cheating on me. Overwhelmed by migraines and the profound betrayal, he couldn't endure it any longer. He expressed his love for me, apologized, and bid farewell before the phone went silent. Before putting the next bullet in his head, Jake dialed emergency hotline to report the double homicide self-destruction, ensuring they had the correct address. They found Jake in a chair with a migraine, holding a weapon, his head leaning against a nearby wall. Arriving 20 minutes later, I encountered a bloody scene. I'm Robbie, and Jake was my older brother. This incident occurred a year ago, marking the worst day of my life and causing significant changes in my world. Losing my older brother to his unfaithful wife was challenging for everyone, particularly impactful on me. Jake had been my best friend, and I loved him deeply. The revelation of Linda's affair and the subsequent homicides and self-destructions turned her into a hated figure in our close-knit community. Still grappling with anger and depression over my brother's passing away, I kept Jake's revelations from Shelley, opting to closely monitor my wife. After Jake's self-destruction, I became paranoid and hired a high-end security company to install various monitoring devices and software. It took 2 weeks for everything to be ready. If Shelley was involved in Linda's infidelity, I aimed to uncover the extent of her own betrayal. My pain persisted, and I became obsessed with understanding my wife's role in the case. Copulation between Shelley and me became rare and cold after Jake's self-destruction, and the revelation of Shelley's involvement in Linda's infidelity. Upon confirming Shelley's infidelity, I harbored anger and a desire for revenge against her for betraying me and contributing to Jake's self-destruction. Over the year, the security company provided me with extensive video and audio recordings of Shelley and her lover engaging in loving acts. Although hurtful, the most painful aspects were Shelley's conversations with her lover, replaying certain phrases in my head. Her lover questioned why she stayed with me, highlighting their shared belief that our bed life was dull compared to theirs. He suggested she should leave me and move in with him. However, Shelley explained that I was grieving my brother's passing away and coping with depression, not wanting to add more pressure on me. She reassured her lover that she didn't need copulation with me as long as she had him. Despite their physical connection, Shelley emphasized her love for me and her commitment to our relationship. She clarified that their relationship was purely about closeness, expressing nostalgia for Blake and disbelief at his demise. They discussed the absence of Blake and expressed concern about my mental state, hoping I wasn't as unstable as my brother. Shelley's lover assured her he wouldn't bring her to our house like Blake did and insisted they were fine, vowing never to get caught. He pledged not to let a similar incident happen to them. After discovering Shelley's infidelity, I devised a plan. She had cheated on me with the assistant tennis coach, Jared Roberts, later promoted to head coach after Blake's untimely passing away. A few weeks later, my anticipated opportunity arrived. Jared was invited to a banquet honoring the country club's top tennis program. I called Shelley, informing her about the banquet, and she was thrilled at the idea of staying at the Ritz-Carlton and spending the entire night with him. Conveniently, I mentioned my 2-week trip, coinciding with the banquet dates. My intention was to ensure Shelley had enough rope to hang herself. As expected, the next day she called Jared, sharing the good news. She persuaded him to take an extended trip, stay 3 nights at a hotel in Orlando, and promised to make his world rock. Naturally, he agreed. Over the next week, they talked about it on the phone and in their messages. It was Shelley's idea to turn the getaway into a fake honeymoon, telling Jared she would like to be his new bride and wife for the 3 days. To further her plan, she even suggested buying a new engagement ring for the occasion and booking a honeymoon hotel room to make it more realistic. They planned to present themselves as newlyweds to attract attention and experience the thrill. She even told Jared that she wished it was real and that he really was her husband. Reading all these texts infuriated me and fueled the embers of my revenge. I was going to enjoy watching her face the demise of everything she loved. Shelley spent all her time working out in the gym, but I was unimpressed and wanted nothing to do with my cheating soon-to-be ex-wife. She was going to spend 3 days with Jared as his wife on a pretend honeymoon. This would be her first extended time alone with another man since she got married 10 years ago. Shelley and Jared thought it would be romantic, so she bought several attractive outfits, bikinis, and lingerie for their date and planned everything out. I was amazed and jealous of the effort she put into this guy. The love I once had for her was gone, and this level of betrayal drained the last drop of love I had left. It was over, and it was time for Shelley to feel the pain. On the way to the hotel, I called Shelley, but only received her voicemail. I left her a message saying that I loved her and would see her in 10 days. Shelley called me back an hour later, seemingly wanting to make sure I didn't suspect anything. She told me that she loved me, and that the children were at their friend's house. Shelley mentioned she would order pizza when the kids got home, and they would watch movies all night. She expressed how much she missed me, said goodbye, and told me that she loved me more than anything in the world, eagerly awaiting my return. The realization hit me like a wave, and I couldn't believe she would lie to me so easily. Arriving at the hotel, I handed my car to the valet. Inquiring at the reception, I asked if Mr. and Mrs. Roberts had checked in earlier. My anger intensified when the receptionist confirmed that the newlyweds had indeed checked into their honeymoon suite the day before. To gather more information, I contacted the hotel's restaurants and confirmed their reservation for 6 p.m. that evening at the main restaurant. Strategically choosing the best viewing spot, I carefully followed the couple throughout dinner without being noticed. As they left, I positioned myself at the entrance, planning to make it appear as if I were entering the restaurant at the same time they were leaving. Observing the newlyweds holding hands, I timed everything perfectly. I deliberately turned the corner to run into them. At that moment, I collided with Shelley's beau, nearly knocking him over, and everyone turned to look. We both staggered slightly, regained composure with a smile, and I took a step back, apologizing. "Oh, I'm so sorry, excuse me." Then I spotted Shelley with mouth agape, simulating shock and surprise. She, adorned in her alluring dress, wished to flee and hide. Her worst fear had materialized. Caught in complete shock with wide-open eyes, she was exposed. I addressed her. "Shelley, is that you? What are you doing here?" I said with a practiced expression on my face. Jared, her boyfriend, couldn't comprehend who I was or what was unfolding for several minutes. I then stepped back, gazing at my wife as if her outfit astonished me. I couldn't fathom how she appeared. She wore a very short, low-cut dress with no bra, nylon stockings, captivating heels, and glamorous makeup and hair. Thoughts raced through my mind, desiring she could dress similarly for me. It seemed like a special ensemble, and I had never seen her exude such sensuality. I was perplexed, contemplating the circumstances. Shelley acknowledged she was caught and struggled to think of something to say, but she just stood there with her mouth agape. Attempting to compose herself, she mentioned that I should be in Jacksonville, explaining that plans had changed due to her job. Bewildered by the scene, I questioned if she was provocatively dressed with some guy. I suggested going out into the lobby to talk, almost shouting and grabbing her hand. Once in the lobby, I confronted her, revisiting our earlier discussion about staying home with the children. I inquired about her presence at the hotel and the person she was on a date with. I repeated my disbelief, wondering if it wasn't what I thought. Looking at her hand and then into her eyes, I pointed out the absence of her wedding rings and questioned if she had cheated on me. Observing the replaced gold ring on her finger, a stark contrast to the large diamond one given by her lover for their pretend honeymoon weekend, she seemed trapped, yearning to escape. In response, she claimed her love for me, insisting it meant nothing. I pressed on, questioning the absence of her wedding ring and the presence of a new gold ring. Accusing her of leaving me for someone else, I asserted that it seemed like something was indeed happening. Throughout, I heightened the pressure, savoring every moment of her confusion. In that tense moment, I turned to the tennis player, my voice firm as I demanded an explanation. "Why don't you tell me what's going on?" Shelley, caught in the middle, looked at Jared with fear, unsure of how he would respond. Jared, attempting to ease the situation, told me to relax, echoing Shelley's assurance that nothing inappropriate was happening. He explained there was an awards banquet at the hotel, and Shelley had kindly accompanied him to support our country club. According to him, it was just a favor, and everything was fine. Suppressing a laugh, I tried to comprehend the absurdity of the situation. I pressed further, questioning if Shelley was only being nice and attending the ceremony as Jared's date. Then, I inquired about their lodging, making it clear that lying would not be tolerated. I intended to inspect both rooms before leaving. Silence fell as they both looked at the floor, avoiding eye contact. Shelley, breaking the silence, pleaded with me not to be upset, expressing her love and attempting to downplay the situation by mentioning that only a few days would have passed and no one would have known about it. The harsh reality struck as the truth unfolded. She spent a few days with him, sharing the same room, engaging in loving acts, and conspicuously absent were my wedding rings, replaced by a new gold band. Shock set in as I confronted her with disbelief. Despite already knowing the answer, I didn't let up, feigning astonishment. "Darling, it's not what you think," she tried to explain, seeking to justify her actions. My anger, though simulated, surged as I demanded a straightforward response. "Answer the question. I'll go to the front desk to get some answers, so you better start talking. Do you live in the same room? Answer me." Tearfully, she admitted, "Yes." The floodgates opened, and she sobbed, unable to hide the truth any longer. "Are you having closeness? And remember, I'm not an idiot." Again, through tears, Shelley confessed, "Yes." The pivotal question lingered. "Are you pretending to be his wife?" Sobbing, she insisted, "It's not what you think, baby." I pressed harder, demanding a clear response. "Answer the damn question. Did you check into this hotel as Mr. and Mrs. Rogers?" In embarrassment, and with a tearful voice, she reluctantly admitted, "Yes." I grasped the situation and made a decision, stating that I understood. I informed Shelley that I would leave her and her new husband alone. I mentioned that I was returning home, and we would contact a lawyer in the morning. I conveyed that we were done, emphasizing that she had left our love, our marriage, and our life together, all to have fun with that tennis player. Shelley pleaded desperately, expressing her love and stating that she didn't want a divorce. She emphasized that I was her husband, and she couldn't lose me, urging me to understand. I remained firm, stating that I didn't understand. I offered one more chance for her to explain the situation so that I could understand. I asked her to tell me why I should put up with my wife sleeping with another man and pretending to be his wife. She begged once again, asking me to understand that it was only supposed to last a few days and that she needed it. She insisted that it was just about closeness and that she didn't love him, emphasizing that she only loved me. I questioned whether I should be okay with her sleeping with another man for a few days to have some fun. Shelley, now hysterical, sobbed between her hands, realizing the gravity of her actions and lacking a good excuse. All she could do was beg for understanding, apologizing, and expressing her love. She acknowledged that it sounded bad, but believed we could get through it. She pleaded for forgiveness, expressing her desire to be with me. Silence ensued. The tennis guy grew irritated and impatient, interjecting to tell me to step back a little and pointing out how upset Shelley was. I turned to Jared with a deaf stare, instructing him to shut up and get out of my sight. I told him to leave me and my real wife alone, emphasizing that he had already ruined our marriage, and that should be enough for the day. Unfazed, Jared stood up, placed his hand on Shelley's shoulder, and stated that he would be in their room, asking her to come up when I was done. She pushed his hand away furiously, not wanting anything to do with him. In that moment, I couldn't help but laugh. I comprehended the situation and made a decision. Suddenly, she no longer desired to be with her lover, and he reveled in everything unfolding. I continued to taunt Shelley as she sat there sobbing, urging her not to be rude to her new husband. I suggested that I might be ruining their honeymoon, emphasizing that we both knew she wanted this and no longer wanted to be with me. I insinuated that she didn't love me, claiming that if she did, she wouldn't cheat on me and show me such disrespect. After Jared departed, we were left alone. She pleaded with me to stay, gazing at me with imploring eyes for a few minutes. I questioned her about the duration of her involvement with Jared. Once again, she lied, insisting it was their first encounter. I marveled at how effortlessly she could deceive me. I probed further, asking if she had ever spoken ill of me or scolded me to Jared during our time together or loving moments. Once again, she lied, denying any such behavior. She reassured me, expressing her love and emphasizing my significance to her. She urged us to leave, proposing an immediate return home to be together. Amidst a whirlwind of emotions, I took out my phone and muted the audio. With a heavy heart, I initiated a playlist featuring snippets of our conversations from the past 6 months. Firstly, I'm aware of your 2-year-long infidelity. Secondly, could you explain this to me? The sound was crisp and loud. The first audio assured someone not to worry about me, claiming ignorance. The second audio expressed dissatisfaction, voicing dislike for our loving moments due to my perceived dullness. The third audio professed commitment, choosing to stay not for the physical aspect, but out of love. Subsequently, the fourth audio acknowledged me as a good provider and father, with no intention of letting me go. The fifth audio made a damning comparison, hinting at someone else being better in bed. The sixth audio conveyed affection and love for another person's ability to arouse her. The seventh audio declared allegiance, stating that her entirety belonged to someone else, not me. Over 50 audio files followed, each one mocking and humiliating me and our marriage. I couldn't fathom the depth of her contempt for me, and her words transcended playful banter. They were profoundly hurtful and disrespectful. Unfortunately, these words would continue to haunt me indefinitely. She wore an expression of apathy, shock, sadness, and utter devastation, a marked departure from her usual demeanor. There was a certain satisfaction in witnessing her grasp the reality that she had irreversibly shattered the marriage, and things would never be the same for her. In a resolute tone, I communicated to Shelley that our relationship was terminated due to my inability to endure her lies any longer. I disclosed my awareness of her infidelity and extramarital affairs spanning at least 2 years. Adding a layer of intrigue, I informed her that Jake had contacted me the night he shot his wife and her ex-lover, overhearing her conversation with Linda about her fondness for Blake's friend. I had been cognizant of her deceit, lies, and disrespect towards me. My intention had been to see how far she would go, and she hadn't slowed down. I highlighted how her actions and remarks unmistakably portrayed me merely as a good provider and father to our children. Disclosing the existence of audio recordings of all her calls and messages, I underscored that I knew her true sentiments about me, our bed life, and her discontent. The ultimatum was straightforward. She must cease the deception and lies, or the truth would be exposed to everyone. After a significant pause, I conveyed that I would be reasonable, but she needed to sign the divorce papers without contesting the agreement. I cautioned that if she chose to resist, I wouldn't hesitate to reveal all the videos and audios to everyone, including her parents. I pointed out that our children were old enough to decide who they wanted to live with, and after we explained her infidelity, lies, and deceit, I was confident they would choose to live with me. I expressed to Shelley that the truly heartbreaking aspect of all this was that I once loved her with all my heart and envisioned a lifetime together. I shared that when Jake first told me about her, I refused to believe it, but the terrible truth unfolded and my heart shattered. I made it clear that she would have to live with the weight of guilt and the loss of love forever, stating firmly, "We are never, ever getting back together." Leaving Shelley in tears, I rose, drove home, and grappled with my brother's passing away. I contemplated that revenge didn't bring peace to my wife. 5 years later, I encountered a woman in a cafe, and we developed a close friendship. I refrained from remarrying, explaining that I could never trust another woman the way I did before. We dated for several years and remained friends. Shelley suffered a nervous breakdown and was hospitalized for a year. After the divorce was finalized, she was never invited back to the city, where they learned of her involvement in the loss of lives of Jake and Linda and her betrayal of the family. She lost custody of her children and only saw them every other weekend. She spent several years deeply depressed because of what she had done. As long as she continued to take her medication, she was able to live off the divorce agreement and her job as a secretary in a real estate office in another city. The children grew up without any problems because I kept them safe and protected. The people around us rallied around me and the children, which allowed us to lead a normal life. Shelley never recovered from the loss of her love, her children, and the wonderful life she once had. Every night she went to bed thinking about how many lives she had ruined and how her life had been ruined by selfishness and narcissism. Shelley became an active church attender and eventually dedicated her life to the church in hopes of finding forgiveness. Oh yeah, Mr. Tennis Pro was attacked one night after leaving another married mistress. His 2 Achilles tendons were cut after being tasered. At this point, his tennis career ended. When the police asked him what happened and what he remembered, he remained silent and did not say anything. However, he remembered the voice and received the message loud and clear. He couldn't identify the voice, but decided not to share the message with police. He will never forget what he was told. Stop seducing married women.